Jackie Chan loves the Chinese Communist Party. He says he wants to become a Chinese Communist Party member. But does the party want him? Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. World-famous martial artist and actor Jackie Chan is making a desperate plea to the Chinese Communist Party.
我很荣幸成为一个中国人，但是我也很羡慕你们是党员，就觉得共产党真的太伟大了。党讲的话，他们承诺的东西，不用100年，几十年后一定会实现。我要做党员，谢谢各位。
Yes, he wants to be a Chinese Communist Party member. Please, oh please, let him in. And while Jackie Chan's bootlicking would embarrass even Smithers, he may not even be good enough for the CCP, which I'll get to in a moment. But first, I'd like to say that Jackie Chan used to be cool. Here he is singing at the Concert for Democracy in China. It was held in Hong Kong, his hometown, to support the Tiananmen Square student protesters in Beijing. That was just 1 week before the tanks rolled in. And here Chan is in Taiwan in 1992, receiving one of the 10 Outstanding Chinese Youth Special Awards, and shaking hands with Taiwan's first democratically elected president, Lee Teng-hui. It doesn't seem like Jackie Chan would have been the type to support the Chinese Communist Party. But that all started to change after the 1997 transfer of Hong Kong to Chinese rule. Then, Chan seems to transform himself from a proud Hong Konger into a proud Chinese nationalist, and in that weird brainwashed way, where he conflates being ethnically Chinese with loving the Chinese Communist Party. This next clip is from 2009, when Jackie Chan was invited to speak at a cross-strait symposium as Hong Kong's tourism ambassador.
有自由好还是没有自由好？真的，我现在已经混乱了。太自由了，就变成香港今天这个样子，很乱，而且变成台湾这个样子也很乱。我慢慢觉得，原来我们中国人是要管的。
According to Chan, both Hong Kong and Taiwan are just too free, like pets without a leash. They're in desperate need of control. They need the warm, loving, iron fist of the Chinese Communist Party. By the way, Chan's whole thing about countries with too much freedom being chaotic is straight out of Communist Party propaganda. In 2013, Chan was appointed to join the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. Appointments are often used as a way to boost celebrities' egos while making the party look like it's open to outside ideas. Hint, it's not. Unlike America, a place where a celebrity can push for criminal justice reform and actually get it done. In China, it's the opposite. The Communist Party gives people high-up positions as a way to control them, and the party is not open to constructive criticism. This year, Jackie Chan was also given membership to Hong Kong's newly reformed election committee, where a group of unelected people get to participate in a rigged election to determine the next leader of Hong Kong. Chan is also a vice chairman of the China Film Association, which refers to itself as an important force for the prosperity and development of socialist literature and art and the construction of a strong socialist cultural country. And by development and construction, they mean endorsing censorship. Here's an interview Jackie Chan did with CGTN in August 2019 as the anti-Chinese Communist Party protests were raging in Hong Kong.
这些年我去过很多不同的国家，而我们的国家正在快速的发展，让我所到之处都感受到身为一个中国人那种自豪。五星红旗在全世界都受到人家的尊重。香港是我的出生地，也是我的家乡。中国是我的国家，我爱我的国家，我爱我的家乡。
So what was Chan doing in June of that year when the Hong Kong protests were happening? He was drinking tea in Taiwan, promoting his new album, and he claimed he didn't know anything about the Hong Kong protests while he was there. But what Jackie Chan seems to have forgotten is that his success as a movie star is not thanks to the Chinese Communist Party. It's thanks to Hong Kong's freedoms. I'll explain after the break. Welcome back. Jackie Chan was born in Hong Kong, back when it was a British territory, and that's where his career took off. Hong Kong's political and economic freedom made it one of the world's most flourishing filmmaking industries, especially for martial arts films. For decades, Hong Kong was the world's second largest motion picture exporter. Jackie Chan began his career in Hong Kong films in the 60s and 70s. In 1980, he starred in his first Hollywood film. That movie may have been dumb, but it was his big break. After that, Chan's career took off, thanks to the freedoms of Hong Kong and eventually America. At the time, the film industry in China was just pushing out boring propaganda films, unlike now, when some of them are interesting propaganda films. This article from 1991 says, from the point of view of the studios, an important advantage of China's political films is that no matter how awful they are, they make money, because the great majority of tickets are bought in bulk by offices and factories. Employees are encouraged to see the films during normal work hours. So while Jackie Chan was filming classics like the thrilling Police Story and the jam-packed Drunken Master, mainland China was pouring all of its money into films about the Communist Party, like The Creation of a World and Mao Zedong and his son. So why on earth would Jackie Chan want to join the Chinese Communist Party? I don't know. But it does seem the Chinese Communist Party hesitates to have Jackie Chan join. I mean, he might not be good for the party's image, which is sad because their bar is real low. On the business end, Chan is what Chinese people call a broom star, an old term for a comet. It means that Chan is bad luck. Whatever product he endorses ends up failing miserably. He's promoted Chinese computer brand Xiaobao Wang and also the VCD player brand iDuo. Never heard of those? That's because Xiaobao Wang filed for bankruptcy and iDuo's boss was put in prison for embezzlement. But maybe that's just a coincidence. Those Chinese manufacturers would have fallen on their own. Jackie Chan even said it himself.
我要买一个电视机，我买什么？我一定买日本的，中国就会爆炸。为什么呢？因为中国很多品牌不给人家有信心。
Whoops, that won't get you into the Communist Party, Jackie. Chan also ran promotions for Bawang shampoo, which later was found to have carcinogens. Chan was also the spokesperson for Yujia Real Estate, but in September 2020, 2 of his Beijing luxury condos developed by Yujia were seized and auctioned because Yujia hadn't paid its debts. Plus, the boy band Jackie Chan manages is a total flop. So needless to say, Jackie Chan isn't very good at non-movie stuff. But the biggest backlash from critics of Chan's wish to join the Chinese Communist Party cite his embarrassing personal life. Many have said on social media that he has cheated on his wife and that his son has used drugs, both of which would disqualify him from party membership. If adultery and drug use actually disqualified people from the Chinese Communist Party, there would be a lot fewer Chinese officials. Anyway, one of the biggest scandals with Jackie Chan is his extramarital affair with Hong Kong actress Elaine Ng. They had a daughter together, but Elaine had to raise her all by herself. Chan allegedly refused to pay child support at the time. The other scandal happened in 2014. Police raided Chan's home, the same one that later got seized and auctioned. Jackie's legitimate son, JC Chan, was found with 100 grams of marijuana. The penalty for drugs in China is severe. JC pleaded guilty for sheltering others to use drugs and ended up spending 6 months in jail. And Jackie Chan didn't even show up at his son's trial. I understand why Jackie Chan was embarrassed. After all, the Chinese government had appointed Chan as their anti-drug ambassador back in 2009. Clearly, that was another non-movie thing he wasn't that good at. But weirdly, even after all that, Chan still manages to be a Chinese icon. He even took center stage at the 100th anniversary of the CCP. A dark past of corruption and failure, but he still looks good when he performs? Maybe he is a good fit for the Chinese Communist Party. And now it's time for me to answer a question from a member of the China Uncensored 50 Cent Army, fans who support us and our efforts to expose the truth about the Chinese Communist Party by contributing through the crowdfunding website Patreon. Jesse Santiago asks, is the U.S. and the rest of the world paying attention? Is the U.S. taking steps? That question is in response to my recent episode, China's First Spacewalk Hides a Dark Secret. Basically, the Chinese space program is run by the People's Liberation Army. That's right, not a civilian organization like NASA, not even a private company run by an evil supervillain like SpaceX. The Communist Party's military. That's a huge danger to democracies around the world. Advanced weapons at China's military bases can fire warheads that can smash satellites and can shoot laser beams that have a potential to blind arrays of delicate sensors. And so the question was, is the U.S. paying attention? Well, some in the intelligence and military sectors have been sounding alarm bells for years. Not too much was done. But the Trump administration's Space Force was partially an attempt to turn things around. The Space Force currently has bipartisan support in Congress, and in all likelihood, the Biden administration will continue it. Last year, the Space Force unveiled its first weapon, a satellite jammer. So in many ways, space warfare has already begun, but the U.S. is only just beginning to play catch-up. Thanks for your question and your support, Jesse. And a big thank you to everyone who supports China Uncensored on Patreon. We could not do this show without you. So thank you for joining us in the fight to expose the Chinese Communist Party to the world. If you're interested in joining, head over to patreon.com/China Uncensored. You'll get a bunch of cool perks, including the chance to have me answer your question on the show. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.